a senior reactor operator in the nuclear industry before coming to government. About a year, well, in the years prior to Fukushima, we became aware that certain nuclear plants in the U.S. were vulnerable to accidents from flooding. Flooding events mostly caused by dam failures. And of course, this is dam failures most likely occur from accident nature. You know, extreme weather events, seismic activity, latent construction engineering flaws. But theoretically, you know, it could come from acts of sabotage. And so what the NRC was doing was all these concerns about flooding at the plants were being stamped by what they called as safety-related information, which has no legal definition. There's no classification guide for it. There's no even administrative guidance on what it is. But you know, you stamp it that way, and if someone like me gives it to someone like Tom, they can administratively fire you for doing that. So that's not what I did. I was concerned about how this issue was being addressed. I didn't think we had taken enough timely action. I mean, this had gone on for years prior to Fukushima. After the Fukushima accident, you know, flooding, you know, got some congressional hearings, but it really got no movement, practical movement in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So I wrote a letter to the chairman, and I sent some of the key documents down to our House and Senate oversight committees. Something that I've had a protected right to do since 1912. You know, federal employees can, you know, address Congress, address the concerns to Congress. The other agency I sent them to was the Office of Special Counsel. Here again, this is all unclassified stuff. It's just an administrative mark with, you know, some informal declaration saying it's secure-related information. Well, the chairman took my letters, gave it to the NRC's Inspector General. And the NRC Inspector General immediately investigated me to see if I had done anything wrong. In the 4 months after my letter was written, they interviewed my boss, they interviewed my boss's boss, and they interviewed his boss. Now, how do you think my immediate supervisor feels about being interviewed by the Inspector General about something I did? And as much as he might not like that, the idea that his boss and his boss's boss are getting interviewed too, you know, that in itself is a little disconcerting to him. Well, then they got to me, and I didn't really know the nature of this investigation that was going on. 2 armed agents took me into a room, you know, to interview me, swore me under oath, told me that I had a right to remain silent, but if I did so, it would be used against me administratively, and you know, they could take action to me up to including termination. And then they began to ask me about why I had shared the information with Congress, who I shared it with. And some of these documents had ended up in the Huffington Post via Greenpeace. And what had happened was a congressional staffer had shared the information with Greenpeace. Something which did not violate any laws. These were unclassified documents on a nuclear safety issue. Well, I was grilled on speculating who in the Congress might have leaked those documents. So here I have Executive Branch Inspector General, his agents, asking me to speculate on completely legal actions of the legislative branch. Well, they told me during that interrogation that they were going to press felony charges against me. Which their argument, you know, 3 weeks after that interrogation, they went to the Assistant U.S. Attorney in Springfield, Illinois. You know, the venue shopped all the way out to the Midwest. They made the argument that I had violated 18 U.S.C. 1030, which is fraud involving computers. And their argument was that I had used my access to a government database mined it for information, and then colluded to share those documents outside of the agency. Well, in terms of colluding, I didn't really do that, but had I, that wouldn't have been illegal. But I certainly used my access to the government database to mine it for information because I was researching a safety concern, and I shared it with our oversight committees. Well, it's kind of unnerving being told you're going to get charged with a felony. I mean, I literally didn't sleep for 3 days, not a week. For months afterwards, I certainly had trouble falling asleep. I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought I was going to lose my health care. My wife at the time was still undergoing cancer treatments. I thought I was going to be wrongly charged with a felony. So I consulted some attorneys, and they all gave me the same advice. The government really doesn't have a strong case on this 1030. However, if you're charged, it's going to cost you about $60,000 to plead innocent to some misdemeanor. If you want to fight in court, it's going to cost you about $400,000. You're not going to have a job while you're doing that. Defense attorneys got to be paid up front on a monthly basis, $5,000, $10,000 a month. If you run out of money along the way, you're going to find yourself $600,000 in debt, $400,000 in debt, with no job, and plea bargaining to some misdemeanor you didn't commit anyway. So what they're going to do is they're going to offer you a settlement agreement. You agree to quietly resign from the NRC, you give up all rights to pursue action against them in court, and we'll tell the DOJ to drop the felony charges. Well, lucky for me that there was no felony charges. They only had 3 venues to go through, and it was Maryland, DC, and Springfield, Illinois. I don't know the name of the AUSA in Springfield, Illinois, but he's a noted civil rights attorney, really good guy. But we all know that out there in these 50 states, there's some AUSA who would play their game with them. And had I been living in that state, you probably wouldn't be hearing from me right now. Thank you.
Folks, we started with one of the